the Toronto Blue Jays have found their hidden gem. While all the focus has been on the top prospects on the Toronto Blue Jays major league team following a very hot start to the season, there is one player in particular that is a hidden gem that fans aren't talking about. We're going to dive into exactly who that is and discuss what it means going forward, as well as dive into some interesting things and some updates ahead of this afternoon's game. But before we get into it, folks, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into it. There's a ton to get into today. We'll have some updates surrounding this afternoon's game in a little bit. Easton Lucas taking the bump yesterday. We're going to forget about that game. It was a terrible extra innings game. The defense was bad. The offense was bad. All these different things. The defense is okay. But let's dive into the conversation of today, which is the Jays' hidden gem. And I want to take a step back and talk about some prospects. And one prospect in particular is Cal Steven. And this is from a few days ago when he delivered another strong performance in his third pro start with the single-A Dunedin team. He went 5 innings, 4 hits, 5 Ks, and 68 pitches. And there's going to be a reason that I'm talking about him, because fans really aren't talking about Cal Steven. Of course, you talk about Trey Yesavage, who we have an update on later. You talk about, of course, Alan Roden, Will Wagner, all these prospects, Jake Bloss. But Cal Steven, he has been putting the minor league system on notice. And of course, we'll dive into, when he got drafted, all these different things. He was a second-round pick in 2024 by the Jays, and he now already has 20 strikeouts and has allowed 1 run in 16 innings. It shouldn't be long before he gets promoted to being in Vancouver. And you can see, and feel free to pause and read some of the advanced analytics there if that's what you're into. But let's dive into it now. The Jays starting pitching, prospect system, all these different things has been terrible over the past really decade, but especially over the past handful of seasons. Of course, they've hit on Alek Manoah, and then, of course, now they had Tommy John surgery. Nate Pearson was a bit of a swing and a miss. You have so many guys. The Jays have been unable to develop starting pitching prospects. Now, you have Trey Yesavage, who's the number 2 prospect. You have guys like Jake Bloss, number 5 or 6 prospect. And now you have a guy in Cal Steven, who you drafted last year. He is tearing it up, and he's going to be a hidden gem for this team. And let's look at his start to his professional career. Again, on April 4th, 5 innings, 2 hits. April 10th, 6 innings. April 16th, 5 innings. Going to be going again, I assume, tomorrow on Monday, or maybe today, depending on how things go. But regardless of that, his start to the season as a young player who is now in Dunedin A-ball, it is fantastic. And I think there's starting to be a turning point for the Toronto Blue Jays prospect system. Starting pitchers are slowly starting to be, better and better in this system. And that is a huge deal for this team who has been unable to develop starting pitchers. Let's look at their current starting pitching staff. Bound Francis, they traded for in 2021 for Rowdy Tellez and Trevor Richards. José Berríos, they traded for Austin Martin, not the car brand, Austin Martin, for, of course, José Berríos. They also gave Simeon Woods Richardson, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, all these guys, free agents. You don't have a single pitcher, Max Scherzer, on your team right now that you developed from your prospect pool. And that's been the unfortunate reality for this team. So to have a guy like this, your most recent second-round pick, his ERA is at 0.56. People need to start talking about this guy. And is he close to the big leagues? No, but it tells a bigger story and paints a bigger story about how this team, we'll dive into some other examples, are starting to shift somehow their at least minor league development system into something positive, which has been something that they haven't been able to develop a lot of pitchers. Position players, sure, to a degree, Vladdy, Bo, all those different guys, but even lately it's been a little bit rough. You have Alan Roden, who had a disastrous game yesterday. But Cal Steven, if you're unfamiliar, he is 6'4", 215. He's a big fella. And of course, you're at now, this is the MLB pipeline rankings. He has a plus fastball, plus control, plus changeup, and a solid grade curveball and slider. And he was the 59th pick. His ETA is a couple years from now. And you can see this here. Steven started off as a back-end reliever and then transformed into a starter. And then, of course, coming into the draft, he didn't pitch on an affiliate team. He was drafted by the Jays, and ultimately he's 22 years old, born in 2002. And by being 22 years old, he has all the time in the world to become the beast that we know he can become. And to see him come out and start this, it is impressive, and I needed to highlight that in today's video. He is the Jays' currently ranked 10th prospect. You can see that climbing up, just like we saw with Arjun Amala, like we saw with Trey Yesavage, of course. And of course, you have Aurelvis Martinez, Jake Bloss, who's been struggling mightily, and Jake Bloss's ETA is this year, and he has not started off on a great foot. So it's going to be interesting. But you look at a lot of these prospects now regarding the pitching development: Trey Yesavage, Ricky Tiedemann, Jake Bloss, Landon Morotis, and of course, Kendry Rojas. You have all those guys who are pitchers in your top 10. That is 5 pitchers in your top 10. And then, of course, Cal Steven, they've made a little bit of a switch. You see this here from Brendan BKA. Yeah, you see here, Gage Stanifer, 3 games this season down in Dunedin. He had a fantastic game. You see here, going to pretend the Dunedin pitching lab just needed a few years to settle in, and that's how it's finally humming now because this Dunedin pitching lab has not been producing a ton. But then you now get a bunch of different players. You have Cal Seaven dominating, and then you now have other guys. Of course, that pitcher was unranked, specifically in A ball. The next wave of pitchers are going to come, and that's fine because if his ETA is 2027, obviously you have José Berríos for a little bit longer, Kevin Gosse one more year, Bassett's probably going to be gone after this year, depending on what happens. Max Scherzer, you have Bowden Francis. You need a replenishment, and that's just the reality of this team. You re-signed Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you extended him, and now he's obviously going to be a beast for years to come. But you need to have other guys who are going to start to, on the pitching side, develop. Now, let's look at his stats this season. 3 starts, 0.56 ERA. Last year, 3.47 ERA, and that was, of course, in college before getting drafted. So his college numbers weren't amazing. 3.28, ERA in 16 games. That's still pretty good for college. And for him to come up and make the transition from college, a second-round pick, immediately to a starter in the Dunedin A-ball, you take that, right? You take that all, every single chance you can get in professional baseball. So it's going to be interesting. His professional debut, 0.56, and what a start for Mr. Steven. And we'll keep you up to date all season long with him because, of course, alongside the Jays, these prospect updates matter a ton. If you're enjoying the prospect updates, let me know down below because let's also dive into what happened last night, which there was a ton of things going on in this Dunedin game. I've been saying Dunedin so much because crazy things are going on. You have Cal Steven pitching, but yesterday we saw Dalton Varsho and Trey Yesavage play in the same game. Yesavage went 5 innings, 3 runs, 4 hits, 10 Ks. Watching back through it, he was overwhelming hitters at points at the fastball curve combo. He's still settling in as a pro, but he's way too good for single A. Won't be there long. He had some command issues, but ladies and gentlemen, we have an absolute stud in Trey Yesavage. 10 strikeouts, of course, the Jays' first-round pick. And for Trey Yesavage, they just need to develop him properly. Nate Pearson may have been rushed up. Alek Manoah may have been rushed up. You need to, and Ricky Tiedemann wasn't rushed up, and he ultimately got hurt. A lot of these guys are like throwing darts at the board, and you need to be able, if you are specifically, the Toronto Blue Jays now, to develop these guys into a major leaguer. You need Trey Yesavage to be a dominant starter in the league for years and years to come, decades or a decade. And we're off to a good start. We're off to a good start in his career, and he's obviously going to be probably the highest ceiling Blue Jay right now besides Arjun Amal. And on the position player side, it's Arjun. On the pitching side, it is clearly Trey Yesavage. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. Obviously, he's off to a great start. You have other guys off to a great start. And of course, the highlight of the video, Cal Steven off to a great start as well. Before we wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into the disagreement a little bit yesterday between Berríos and Raleigh. Basically, you said, call it fair game, didn't make much of it, but added, I like when our guys are checking up for our teammates, basically discussing how Berríos and Cal Raleigh got into it because Berríos thought Cal Raleigh was relaying signs from second base. It's really a nothing burger. I love seeing that, Berríos is standing up for himself, and Cal Raleigh was respectful about it after the game, saying if I was, the opposing team's pitcher, I'd do the same thing. It is what it is. It was an interesting one. Cal Raleigh got the better of the Blue Jays, the 2-run double, and hopefully the Jays can take care of business today because I said in yesterday's video, because as of time I was recording, the Yankees were up. They choked a 4-run lead in the bottom of the 9th and lost an extra, so it took a little bit of the sting out of the game for Jays fans, but Jays second in the AL East. I know standings don't really matter right now. See if you guys talk about that in the comment section. It's still nice to keep an eye on the Jays actually being in the race for once rather than the actual, standings themselves. Just seeing the Jays in the race playing winning baseball. That's all we care about now. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts are. Cheers.